Well, I'm Vern Schaefer, and sometimes known as OV, but these are pieces that have been photographed that will be a part of 3 different shows, one at the Beloit Incubator, one at Beloit College, and one of in the Janesville Art Center. So you'll be seeing a lot of my work, and I always work in other words, the technique is going to be the same no matter what the shape is, and I use about 3 or 4 different techniques. It might be interesting to take this little piece right here. I start out usually with a nail, and I like what we used to call horseshoe nails. They're in cross section. They're a square. They're flat but they also taper. Well, the beauty of that is if I want 2 arms to be the same length, I just use 2 of those nails and they're automatically to be the right. But I do heat them, bend them, hammer them to make little hands or a foot. And so what I do is I weld together this shape. In other words, they have to be, this is a nail that will be welded here, nail that's welded there, and I can bend them. So when I get them, when it's still in that shape, just the bare nail, what I will do to bend them, in this case I wanted it to stand on a pedestal. Make it look like a little acrobat. There's a technique called brazing. That's when I take a bronze rod, heat the metal, at the same time I'm heating the bronze rod and the steel, and I get a puddle. The main thing is to watch the temperature. It's kind of like frying an egg, but I can slowly heat this, and as I can go down with my bronze rod, leaving a trail of molten metal. And if I stop just a little, and I've got the temperature right, I can let it build up a little bit. If I get too much in one place, then I can actually sculpt almost with the heat, just by getting the heat and getting that metal to go, push it around. But I do a lot of these little figures, but this is the same technique. It's called brazing. And it's nothing more than a high temperature solder. Well, this is the same thing, except I'm using a brass rod and I'm joining steel at a higher temperature. In the show that you'll see a number of these pieces of jewelry, and they all have a superstructure of steel rod. The reason you use steel is as you're heating the bronze rod up, if the steel superstructure was the same metal, it would just disappear. In other words, you're working with a scale of heat. But the first thing I do is make the superstructure. Then I braze on the metal. 2 of these have stones in them. So what I do first is make the bezel, or the piece that the stone is going to fit in. I want to be sure that that's so. I don't know whether this was a piece that, I'm sure that I made that because it's easier to bend the steel than it is to try to shape the stone. Now these rays that come out of here are just nothing more than either steel rod, and I've hit them with a hammer and changed their shape. Then I just braze them all together down there. If it gets too small and you're playing, you're going to be playing around with heat. You're going to, if you're trying to do this with the bronze rod, it'll heat up and just fall apart. So this is all steel, and I build a little brazier to fit the stone. And when I get done, I put the stone in. This is the same way. Now this is bronze rod. I just make the loops, put them together. The only welding is right here. This shape was first cut out of flat steel. Then I put the some rod, steel rod on top to make a raised sort of bas relief kind of thing. But then when I put the brazing on there, everything is put together and as strong as can be, you know. I did this for a couple that lived down the street, and she asked me, so she got a big kick out of her kids, the young ones, you know, there was jump roping, and the two at the end are brothers and sisters or something, but they were out there, and of course they'd stumble a lot and this and that, so I just made a sculpture of those kids doing that. It's kind of, but these little figures are made just like this.